Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to another live streaming of basic transfer pricing. And tonight, our topic will be about investment business, foreign accrual property income, and we will discuss the case of Loblaw Financial Holdings Inc. versus Her Majesty the Queen, Canada. No? So, shout out.
May 4 viewers.
Okay? So, shout out sa mga viewers natin, no? And I would like to say thank you sa mga subscribers natin. Ilan yung subscribers natin?
788.
Okay, so we have 788 viewers po dito sa basic transfer pricing. So thank you very much, and we will discuss. This is a good case, no, sa transfer pricing natin. And Canada is known for good transfer pricing cases, no? Ang magaganda ng mga nadidesisyonan nilang transfer pricing cases. No? Okay. This is a case filed in the Federal Court of Appeal. Appeal na po ito, no? By Loblaw Financial Holdings Inc. The appellant, the respondent is Her Majesty the Queen, no? And sino po yung nagbigay ng desisyon dito? Si Judith A. Woods. Siya po yung nagbigay ng decision. Siya yung justice dito, no? Okay. This appeal concerns whether the foreign accrual property income, or what they call as FAPI, no? FAPI, F-A-P-I, foreign account property income provision in the Income Tax Act, REC 1985, apply to Loblaw Financial Holdings Inc. in relation to its Barbados subsidiary, Glen Huron Bank Limited. Itong case dito is about investment income or interest income, yung tinatawag nila na passive income, no? So, ang decision dito ng court is to exempt the passive income but to subject to investment income. Ito nga FAPI, ang tinatawag nila na active income, no? Yung coming from the management services. Ang nangyari po dito, ibinalik ang case sa minister, no? O sa tax authority nila to reassess the case, no? Pero may cost granted na naibigay na sa appellant dito sa kay Loblaw Financial. So, partly, nanalo dito si Loblaw kasi pinagbigyan yung kanyang appeal, no? Okay, so anong nangyari dito sa case na to? The Minister of National Revenue issued reassessment to Loblaw Financial, which required it to pay tax on Glen Huron income, no, on the basis that it was FAPI. FAPI is foreign account property income, meaning may account ka sa ibang bansa, it is owned by you, property mo yan. Parang sa atin din sa Pilipinas, that if you are a resident citizen and you have property, income producing property in other countries, that income producing properties mo, the income earned from those properties are also taxable in the Philippines, no? So sa Canada ganun din. Yung foreign-owned property mo na nag-earn ng income is also taxable in Canada. Yeah. In doing so, the minister took the view that Glen Huron's income did not qualify for an exclusion provided in foreign banks. Loblaw Financial appealed from the reassessment to the tax court. We are discussing about transfer pricing, and when we talk about transfer pricing, this is about related parties, because there can be no issue regarding transfer pricing if there is no related party transactions. Kaya ang nangyayari dito, itong transactions that evolved between the group, no? Ito yung group ng Loblaw Financials at saka yung Weston, no? Weston Limited na grupo. Isa lang yung may-ari o kaya related parties lang din yung may-ari. In a decision reported as 2018, the tax court agreed with the minister that the foreign bank exclusion did not apply. No? Ano yung foreign bank exclusion sa income? Hindi taxable dito. Pero it doesn't apply, that's why nagiging taxable siya. The basis for the court's conclusion was that Glenn conducted business principally with affiliated corporations and therefore it did not conduct business principally with arm's length persons, no, as required by the applicable legislation. Loblaw Financial has appealed further to this court. The appeal relates to Loblaw Financial taxation years from 2000 to 2005. Ilang years yan? 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 years, and 2008 and 2010. So all in all, 7 years po itong case na to, no? And before that, yung discussion natin about investment business, no? I will give you some points about investment business, no? Which is ito yung nangyari dito sa case na to. Kasi lahat to is passive income, no? Kaya may tinatawag dito na investment business. Okay. Okay. So, anong ibig po sabihin daw ng investment business? Investment business of a foreign affiliate of a taxpayer means a business carried on by foreign affiliate in a taxation year other than a business deemed by subsection 2 to be a business other than an active business. Ano yung active business? So, sa mga discussions natin na iba, we discussed about the active business at saka yung passive business, no? Active meaning ginagawa mo talaga para magka-earn ka ng income. Pag passive naman, pwedeng investment business mo siya, yung investment mo lang ang kumikita para sa'yo, o kaya yung property mo, no? So, yun po yung passive business. Ibig sabihin, passive, hindi ka gumagawa, pero kumikita ka ng income. Okay. To be a business other than an active business carried on by the foreign affiliate and other than a non-qualifying business of the foreign affiliate, the principal purpose of which is to derive income from property. Ano po yung principal purpose of the investment business? To derive income, no? Kasi, bakit ka ba nag-i-invest? Siyempre, to derive income. That is as an economic entity, ang business talaga, kaya yan nagkakaroon ng mga transactions in order to earn income. Kasi kung hindi income ang gusto mong kitain, then you are not in business. The principal purpose of which is to derive income from property, including interest, dividends, rents, royalties, or any similar returns or substitutes for such interest, dividends, rents, royalties, or returns. Income from the insurance or reinsurance of risk, no? So, kasama pa rin siya sa definition ng investment business. Income from the factoring of trade accounts receivable. Pinafactor mo yung, nag-factor ka ng trade accounts receivable. Kumita ka. Or, profits from the disposition of investment property unless it is established by the taxpayer or the foreign affiliate that throughout the period in the taxation year during which the business was carried on by the foreign affiliate, no? The business, other than any business conducted principally with persons with whom the affiliate does not deal at arm's length, is a business carried on by it as a foreign bank, a trust company, a credit union, an insurance corporation, or a trader or dealer in securities or commodities, the activities of which are regulated under the laws. Ano tong mga regulated activities? Lalo na yung mga banking activities, no? They are regulated by the central bank. They are regulated under the laws of its country in which the business is carried on through a permanent establishment in that country. Ano ba ang permanent establishment? it stayed in the country for more than 180 days, at least 183 days, and it carries on the business. No, it's considered as branch. Yan po yung permanent establishment. In that country and of the country under whose laws the affiliate is governed, and any of exist was unless the affiliate was continued in any jurisdiction formed or organized or was last continued. Letter B, of the country in which the business is principally carried on, or if the affiliate is related to non-resident corporation of the country under whose laws that non-resident corporation is governed and any of exist was unless the non-resident corporation was continued in any jurisdiction formed or organized or was last continued. If those regulating laws are recognized under the laws of the country in which the business is principally carried on, and all of those countries are members of the European Union. So yun po yung tinatawag natin sa Canada na investment income. Or the development of real property or immovables for sale, the lending of money, the leasing or licensing of or property, or the insurance or reinsurance of risk. So kasama pa rin siya sa definition ng investment business. Either the affiliate otherwise than as a member of a partnership carries on the business, the affiliate being in respect of those times in that period of the year that it so carries on the business referred to in paragraph C as the operator, or the affiliate carries on the business in a qualifying manner, qualifying member of a partnership, the partnership being in respect of those times in that period of the year that the affiliate so carries in the business referred to in paragraph C as the operator, and the operator employs more than 5 employees full-time in the active conduct of the business, or the equivalent of more than 5 employees full-time in the active conduct of the business, taking into consideration only the services provided by employees of the operator and the services provided outside Canada to the operator by any one or more person, each of whom is or during the time at which the services were performed by the person as employees, a corporation related to the affiliate otherwise than because of a right referred to in paragraph 251. So yan po yung definition nila. Actually, mahaba. Pero what is being defined here, yung tinatawag nila na investment business, no? And if the company or an entity is undertaking investment business, then ano yung purpose niya? To earn income in the form of interest, dividend, rent, royalties, or returns, no? Pwede ring income from the insurance or reinsurance of risk, income from the factoring of trade accounts receivable, or profit from the disposition of investment property. No? So, kasama po yan sa definition ng investment business. At yan po yung issue dito sa Loblaw versus Loblaw Financial Holdings Inc. versus Her Majesty the Queen. No? This is a case in Canada. Okay. Ano po yung background ng case? What happened into this case? Ano nangyari dito? No? Loblaw Financial is a Canadian corporation and an indirect wholly owned subsidiary of Loblaw Companies Limited. Loblaw is a Canadian public corporation which is controlled by George Weston Limited. No? Labo-labo na to kasi ang dami nilang groups na owned by the same person at they are doing business between themselves, no? Okay. Which is controlled by George Weston Limited. Accordingly, Loblaw and Weston as well as their subsidiaries deal with one another on a non-arm's length basis. So yun ang favorite ng transfer pricing Why? Kasi nung mga way back mga 2013 pa, 2008, hindi pa masyadong mahigpit sa transfer pricing. You can always see or read in the disclosure to financial statements sinasabi doon na the transactions are not arm's length, no? So, sabi ko, hindi pa masyadong mahigpit ang transfer pricing law noon. Kasi kung ngayon yan, pag sinabi mong non-arm's length, then you have to adjust, no? Kasi yun ang purpose ng transfer pricing audit eh. Pag nakita mo na the transaction is non-arm's length, then you have to make an adjustment in order to make it arm's length. Why? Kasi ang purpose ng transfer pricing is to adapt the arm's length principle. So, kung hindi mo inadapt yung arm's length principle, then you have a violations. At ano yung magiging violations mo? Hindi arm's length yung inyong transaction. So, you have to adjust. No, paano mo siya i-adjust? I-adjust it such that magkaroon kayo ng comparables na independent parties and what is happening in independent parties should be adapted by the related parties. No? So, ganun po ang nangyayari. So, in this case, ano sabi dito? Those two groups, the Weston Group and the Loblaw Group financials, they are dealing with each other in non-arm's length. No? So, in the early 1990s, Loblaw Financial became concerned about proposed tax changes that could negatively impact its financing subsidiary in the Netherlands. It decided to incorporate a new subsidiary in Barbados. No? So, ano ba ang reputation ng Barbados? No? Tax haven countries because napakababa ng kanilang tax rate. In 1993, Loblaw Financial approached the Central Bank of Barbados about licensing its Barbados subsidiary as an offshore bank. So, anong ginawa ni Loblaw? Gumawa siya ng subsidiary sa Barbados and then pinalicense niya sa Central Bank of Barbados na magiging bank yung kanyang branch, no? So, the Central Bank agreed to issue the license and did so late in 1993 pursuant to the Offshore Banking Act. No, or OSBA. In 2002, the OSBA was replaced by International Financial Service Act, or EFSA, and the subsidiary became subject to the EFSA at that time. Ano yung EFSA? International Financial Service Act. When the subsidiary became licensed, it was permitted to use the term bank. So, naging bangko na siya. In its name, and the name was changed to Glen Huron Bank Limited. So, bangko na yung related party ng Loblaw Financial. In accordance with the Barbados legislation, Glen Huron was a bank and subject to Barbados banking regulations. If the Central Bank of Barbados issued it a license under the OSBA or the EFSA. No, ano yung OSBA? Offshore Banking Act. Ano yung EFSA? International Financial Service Act. No? Accordingly, once the license was issued, the central bank began to regulate Glen Huron's activities. Over time, capital was invested in Glen Huron by the Loblaw Group, including by Loblaw Financial's Netherlands subsidiary. For the most part, these funds were invested prior to the taxation years at issue. Under the EFSA and similarly under the OSBA, Glen Huron's activities were limited to activities described in the definition of international banking business. So, yun yung activities ni Glen Huron Bank, which is the related party of Loblaw Financials. That's why nangyari dito, yung income earned by the Glen Huron's Bank, tinatax as income of Loblaw Financials. No? So, it is reproduced below. EFSA subsection 42. For the purposes of subsection, international banking business means, ito yung ibig sabihin ng international banking business, which is the activity of Glen Huron Bank. The business of receiving foreign funds. So, yan yung business niya. Pwede siyang tumanggap ng foreign funds. Through the acceptance of foreign money deposits payable upon demand or after a fixed period or after notice. The sale or placement of foreign bonds, foreign certificates, foreign notes, or other foreign debt obligations or other foreign securities, or any other similar activity involving foreign money or foreign securities. The business of using the foreign funds so acquired either in whole or in part for loans, advances, and investments. The activities of the licensee for the account of or at the risk of the licensee, the purchase or placement of foreign bonds, foreign certificates, notes, or other foreign debt obligations or other foreign securities, or any other similar activity involving foreign money or foreign securities. So yan po yung activities na international banking business. The business of accepting in trust, this is another, from business resident outside Barbados or from prescribed persons. Amounts of money in foreign currencies or in foreign securities or both. Foreign personal property or foreign movable property. So, ang daming activities, no? Ng international banking business. Foreign real property or foreign immovable property. Accordingly, to expert evidence of Barbados law introduced by Loblaw Financial, the Barbados legislation required Glen Huron to satisfy both the receipt and use requirement as set out above. The expert also opined that Glen Huron satisfied these requirements. So, the justice here, si Judith Woods, note that the assumptions provided by Loblaw Financial on which the expert based her opinion did not include an assumption that Glen Huron's receipts were part of its business. No? Accordingly, this finding was part of the expert's opinion. Glen Huron remained in existence until 2013 when it was liquidated to provide Loblaw with funds for a major acquisition. So, parang pinatay na nila yung Glen Huron Banks, yung establish nila sa Barbados. Okay, Glen Huron activities. 2013 nila niliquidate. Ang tax year under dispute is 2001, 2002, 3, 4, 5, 2008, and 2010. 7 years, no? Glen Huron's activities. The activities undertaken by Glen Huron are central to this appeal. So, it's very important na ang determination ng kanya activities, no? Kasi nga, ang issue dito is to tax the income of Glen Huron as income of Loblaw Financial. And the tax court's reasons describe these activities in detail. In light of this, it is necessary to provide brief summary, no? So during the years of at issue, ang ganda lang dito sa case na to because in detail, no? Kaya maganda yung pagkasulat ng decision ni Judith Woods, no? Siya yung sumulat ng decision. Ang ganda kasi in details pati yung background ng case, no? So, during the years at issue, Glen Huron engaged in several types of financial activities. Ito yung financial activities ni Glen Huron. It purchased low-risk US-denominated short-term debt securities. It entered into interest rate swaps, which were generally intended to provide Glen Huron with a rate of return equivalent to a fixed rate on a long-term borrowing. So, marunong talaga sila sa investment. It entered into cross-currency swaps so that Glen Huron was not exposed to fluctuations in currency relative to the Canadian dollar. Okay, imagine, may cross-currency swaps sila, no? To manage, no? Parang risk management nila on the fluctuations ng currency ng Canadian dollar. It entered into an arrangement with the Weston Group to purchase a portfolio of loans that had been extended by arm's length bank to independent drivers of Weston Bakery products in the United States. Glen Huron subsequently made additional loans to the drivers. A few years later, Glen Huron sold the loan portfolio to another corporation in the Loblaw or Weston Group, and Glen Huron managed the portfolio on its behalf. Patayin mo na yung aircon. It managed investments on behalf of other corporations in the Loblaw and Weston Group for a fee. For a fee. It also managed, ito yung management niya, no, ng investment. Ito yung tinatawag na active income. Pero yung mga interest income na yan, royalties, passive income yan. Pero itong management, actually, dun sa decision, ito yung sinubject niya na as income ng Loblaw Financial. Ang active income lang, hindi niya sinama yung passive income. Okay. It also managed funds on behalf of one arm's length corporation. The investment strategy employed on behalf of these corporations was very similar to the Glenurans' own investment strategy. It made 2 short-term loans to non-arm's length corporations, and it entered into equity forward contracts to purchase Loblaw shares. Loblaw's consolidated financial statements stated that the purpose of this transaction was to manage its exposure to fluctuations in its stock-based compensation cost as a result of changes in the market price of its common shares. No? So yan ang explanation nila kung bakit si Glenurans Bank pinurchase niya yung Loblaw shares. No? In this court, Loblaw Financials provided a summary of the asset value and income from Glenurans activities. The summary, which is reproduced in an appendix to this reasons, was largely based on financial statements in the record. The summary was prepared for purposes of this appeal. Ang lalaki, no? It amounted to millions of US dollars. No? Laki ng income dito ni Glenurans Bank. The source of funds for these activities is also relevant in this appeal. There were 2 main sources of funds. Prior to the taxation years at issue, Glenurans' major source of funding was capital invested by corporations in the Loblaw Group, either as share capital or interest-free debt. Kaya nga hindi arm's length no? Kasi interest-free debt. During the taxation years at issue, Glenurans' funding increased mainly through its own written earnings, which were substantial. Applicable legislation, the FAPI. Ano yung FAPI? Foreign Account Property Income. Okay. The FAPI scheme is intended to prevent Canadians from avoiding tax on passive income by earning such income in foreign corporations located in low-tax jurisdictions. So, anong purpose ng FAPI? Para matax yung income na tinatago ng mga Canadians in low-tax jurisdiction. No? So the scheme aims to achieve this result by requiring the foreign corporation's passive income to be included in the Canadian shareholders' income as it is earned. Kaya nga ang income dito ng Glenurans Bank na registered in Barbados was taxed as income of the Loblaw Financial Holdings. No? So, the FAPI to be included in the shareholders' income, the brevity of this provision is not representative of the FAPI legislation as a whole, which is notoriously complex. No? Complicated ang FAPI legislation. No? In computing the income for a taxation year of a taxpayer resident in Canada, there shall be included in respect of its share owned by the taxpayer the capital stock of a controlled foreign affiliate of the taxpayer as income from the share, the percentage of the foreign accrual property income. So ito yung legal basis ng na i-tax ng Canadian tax agency ang Loblaw Financial on the income of Glenurans banks in Barbados. No? Ito yung legal basis. No? So there shall be included in respect of its share owned by the taxpayer of the capital stock of a controlled foreign affiliate of the taxpayer as income from the share, the percentage of the foreign accrual property income of any controlled foreign affiliate of the taxpayer for its taxation year of the affiliate ending in the taxation year of the taxpayer equal to the shares participating percentage in respect of the affiliate determined at the end of its such taxation year of the affiliate. At a very basic level, the FAPI scheme operates by distinguishing between active business income, which is not FAPI, and passive income, which is. No? So, ano yung dinistinguish nila dito? The active income and the passive income. As described in the tax court's reasons, after the FAPI legislation had been enforced for several years, the government was concerned that the legislation did not have sufficient teeth to achieve its purpose. No? Kasi pagka walang teeth, hindi madali i-enforce. No? The problem was perceived to be that there were no legislative definition of active business income or passive income. No? So, kaya nga yung active income and passive income should be certainly defined. Accordingly, in 1995, the legislation was overhauled to provide detailed definition, including definition of investment business, which in general terms represent passive income. So ano ang investment business? Passive income. Bakit siya tinatawag na passive income? Kasi yung income mo is coming from investment. Wala kang ginagawa. Pag sinabi mo kasi na active income, talaga nag-exert ka ng effort to earn that income. Pero pag sinabi mong investment business, it is your investment who earns the income for you. No? So the definition of investment business in subsection 95(1) of the Income Tax Act is central to this appeal. No? It is sufficient to present purposes to look at the current version of the definition, and it is reproduced in an appendix. This appeal focuses on the part of the definition that sets out specific exclusions for particular types of business, such as financial businesses, which earn interest income in the context of an active business, no? Paragraph A, B, and C. One of the conditions that must be satisfied in order to qualify for one of the exclusions is an arm's length requirement. No? Kasi internationally accepted principle po ang arm's length principle. The requirement set in paragraph A of the definition of investment business. This requirement is drafted as an exclusion to the exclusions. No? So exemptions to the exemption, exclusions to the exclusion. So, kung exclusion siya sa exclusion, anong ibig sabihin nun? Included siya. No? Kasi, sa included, nag-exclude ka. Sa excluded, nag-exclude ka pa. So, bumalik siya doon sa included. No? Okay. Kasi exclusion to the exclusion. Other than any business conducted principally with person with whom the affiliate does not deal at arm's length. No? Loblaw Financial submits that Glenuron satisfies the requirement for an exclusion as a foreign bank. The term foreign bank is also defined in subsection 95. 1, no? So anong decision ng court? No? Yun yung mga counter allegations ng Loblaw. There were many issues before the tax court, and the court's key findings were helpfully summarized in the formal judgment. There are 3 findings with respect to FAPI. FAPI is foreign account property income, no? So ito yung findings. Glenuron was a regulated foreign bank. Bakit siya regulated foreign bank? Because it is licensed by the Central Bank of Barbados, with the equivalent of greater than 5 full-time employees in the taxation years at issue. However, it was principally conducting business with non-arm's length persons, and consequently, Glenuron's income was from an investment business and was required to be included in Loblaw Financial's income as FAPI. No? So, pursuant to paragraph 95(2)(b) of the ITA, Glenuron's fee income from managing investments for non-arm's length persons was FAPI, as the income was deemed to be income from a separate business other than an active business. Certain fees paid by Weston subsidiaries were also FAPI, even if they were not. No? They were not subject to paragraph 95(2)(b), as this activity would otherwise be part of Glenuron's investment business. And in the calculation of FAPI, foreign exchange gains and losses in respect of Glenuron's investment in short-term debt securities was on income account. No? As a result of these findings, the tax court ordered that the relevant taxation years be reassessed only with respect to foreign exchange. So, anong ginawa ng court? ang reassessment only with foreign exchange. So, hindi kasama yung ibang income ng Glenyurons Bank. In other respects, the minister determination that Glenyurons income was FAPI was upheld. No? In concluding that Glenyuron did not conduct business principally with arm's-length persons, which is the only issue in this appeal, the court rejected both of the parties' submission. So, both ng allegations ng dalawa, the appellant and the respondent, ni-reject ng court. As for submission by the Crown, ito yung sa government, the court disagreed with the Crown that the arm's length test required that Glenyuron compete for business, no? Para maging independent siya, no? As for submission by Loblaw Financial, the court disagreed with its contention that the arm's length test applies only to persons with whom Glenyuron had entered into income earning arrangements, no? So, parehong nag-disagree ang court, both the appellant and the respondent, no? Instead, the court concluded that competition is not a requirement of the arm's length test. No? Hindi kasama yung competition pag gusto mo i-determine yung arm's length test. But it is relevant to the analysis. The court also concluded that all persons with whom Glenyuron conducted business should be taken into account. The court's conclusions regarding the arm's length test also included the following. Ilan yung ating viewers?
5 viewers. Shout out ma'am kay kay Jules Prince. Good PM daw po.
Okay, shout out sa iyo, Jules Prince, no? Thank you for watching. And thank you for watching also sa lahat ng viewers natin, no? The arm's length test as applied to foreign banks requires an examination of a bank's receipts and use of funds, no? And announcement lang po, no, before we go through with our discussions. Itong June, mag-conduct na tayo ng mga webinars in transfer pricing. Siguro magkaroon na tayo ng updates in transfer pricing, especially on the transfer pricing methods, no? Although hindi ko siya sinasabay-sabay kasi parang give in yung mata ko dahil sa pinagsabay-sabay ko yung filing, yung transfer pricing analysis, at saka yung study ko, no? Kasi nag-start yun ng April 1 eh. So, sobrang dami ng readings, and then nag-exam ako ng 3 exam doon sa international taxation, hindi kinaya ng mata ko. That's why, unti-unti lang, but we will conduct our webinar, no? Mag-updates tayo ng webinars in transfer pricing. So, we will do it the same way, na pre-registered, no? Pre-registration. Yung ating transfer pricing updates. And I will also give you some topics in international taxation. At saka yung mga updates on digitized economy, no? Sa how to tax the digitized economy. Kasi nandyan na eh, no? So, marami po tayong mga updates, and hopefully, magkaroon na tayo ng mga updates natin. Gawin natin yan, every month, no? Siguro, itong June, gagawa na tayo ng transfer pricing webinars natin at mga 2 lang. And then, i-continue din natin yung sa tax agent. Every month din yun, no? Para at least tuloy-tuloy tayo. And, ang ating transfer pricing certificate program, we will continue also. Pero since it is a webinar, hindi na po siya pwede na 1 week, no? Gawin natin siyang 2 weeks. Kasi bawal na yung 8 hours a day, no? 2 hours lang, morning and afternoon. So 4 hours lang ang allowed ng PRC. That's why we will make it 2 weeks yung certificate program in transfer pricing. And then magkaroon na din tayo ng bookkeeping, no? We will redefine bookkeeping, no? At magkaroon tayo ng mga online bookkeeping, no? Mag-o-offer na rin kami ng online bookkeeping services, no? Na mag-develop tayo ng apps, for our online bookkeeping. at saka yung online recording, no? Ayun, ginagawa na to ng iba eh. Yung cloud recording, no? So, through the internet. And maganda na kasi umuwi ako sa farm kanina. May naglalagay na doon ng mga cable na fiber optics. kaya kaya sabi ko talagang dream come true na yung ginagawa sa syudad, ginagawa na rin sa farm, no, sa countryside. At parang yung opportunity is even na sa syudad at saka sa countryside, no? So magandang news kasi may internet facilities na and at the same time nandiyan yung mga halaman mo, yung farm mo. At saka ang daming oxygen, no? Okay. So let's continue with our discussion. No, this is about the Loblaw Financials versus Her Majesty the Queen. No, this is a transfer pricing case in Canada. This is about investment income or investment business. No, okay. So, anong mga allegations dito? The arm's length test is applied to foreign bank, requires an examination of the bank's receipts and uses of funds. No? Saan ba ginamit ng bank ang mga natanggap niya na funds? No? The term principally means greater than 50%. Kasi principally, parang majority. No? So, more than 50%. And this is to be determined based on all relevant circumstances. However, in the context of the foreign bank exclusion, there should be a greater relative weighting to the receipt side of the business because this is where competition would be respected. With respect to the receipt side, it all came from the non-arm's length parties. Ito na yung analysis ng receipt ng Linyurance Bank, which is the affiliate or the related party of Loblaw Financials, no? Kaya nga ang issue dito is pinapa-include ng Her Majesty the Queen ang income ng Linyurance Bank tinatax as income of the Loblaw Financials, no? Kasi related parties sila. On the use side, the court used the awkward wording from the arm's length test and stated, the appellant has not satisfied me that even the use of funds was not principally conducting business with non-arm's length persons. No? So yun ang sinabi ng the Queen. Hindi si Linyurance na nagkakandak ng business with non-arm's length persons. Okay. In a separate decision reported as 2018 TCC 263, the tax court ordered that each party bear its own cost. No? Kasi, di ba, sabi nila, parehos ang hindi naniwala yung court sa kanila. So, they have to bear its own court. Position of Loblaw Financial. In this section, the writer of the decision, si Judith Woods, provide an overview of the submission of Loblaw Financial concerning the arm's length requirement, which is the only issue in the appeal. No? Arm's length requirement. Kasi transfer pricing case. Ano bang issue sa transfer pricing? Arm's length. Yun lang, wala nang iba. No? But it will fall in different transactions or different activities. Kaya nagkakaroon lang. Pero ang issue talaga is arm's length. Yun lang, wala nang ibang issue ang transfer pricing. Okay, so I have provided a summary of the submission of the Crown here because the Crown generally endorses the reasons of the tax court. More will be said about the Crown submission later in the reasons. Loblaw Financial submits that the tax court made 4 errors of law. Kasi pag nag-appeal ka, it is mandatory na state mo kung ano yung error, kaya ka nga nag-appeal, no? So, anong error dito ng tax court na sabi ng Loblaw? It read in an unlegislated competition requirements, no? Sabi niya, ang sinasabi daw ng tax court, unlegislated competition requirement. It focused on capitalization rather than sources of income. Sabi niya, ang sources ng funds, kasi ang sources ng funds, yun yung sources ng capital mo eh. So doon nag-focus ang tax court, hindi sa sources of income. Why? Kasi ang taxable is the income, hindi naman yung source ng capital, no? So it characterized the conduct of business as including capital receipts, no? So, ang sabi niya na kasama na daw sa conduct ng business yung receipt of capital. Samantalang sa atin, sa tax code natin here in the Philippines, it is really defined that income does not include receipt of capital or yung tanggapin mo ulit yung capital or the return of capital. It's not included as income. Ang income is only the interest or the premium of the money that you receive for the use of that money. Hindi kasama yung return of capital. No? And number 4, it failed to treat Gleneuron as separate and distinct from Loblaw. No? Ang sabi ng Loblaw na tinreat talaga ng tax court na related si Gleneuron sa Loblaw, no? Kasi hindi niya tinreat na separate sila and distinct, no? Kaya nga ang income ni Gleneuron tinatax sa kay Loblaw, no? Loblaw Financial submits that a proper interpretation of the arm's length test, ito na pag nag-appeal ka, state mo yung error and then sabihin mo ano dapat, no? So ano sabi ng Loblaw? Proper interpretation of the arm's length test frames the issue as whether the foreign bank generated income by investing in or with arm's length persons. This follows, it is suggested by the definition of investment business which focuses on income from investments. So ano daw ang investment business? Focuses on income from investments. But take note sa explanation kanina ng mga activities ng Gleneuron Banks, anong ginagawa ni Gleneuron? May mga management services pa siya, no? At saka may mga active income pa siya, no? So the key factors one should consider in determining who Gleneuron conducted business with. Loblaw Financial suggests are, number 1, the value of Gleneuron's income-generating assets. Number 2, the amount of income derived from those assets. And number 3, the time, attention, and effort devoted to its income-generating activities. No? So yun ang sabi ni Loblaw. Applying these principles, Loblaw Financial suggests that Gleneuron's business is conducted principally with the arm's-length persons. So yun na yung allegations naman ni Loblaw na arm's-length persons yung katransaction naman ni Gleneuron. Involved in 3 core activities. Ano yung 3 core activities ni Gleneuron? Persons from whom Gleneuron purchased short-term debt securities. Yun yung binilhan niya ng short-term debt securities. Number 2, counterparties to Gleneuron swaps. Yung mga swaps na ginawa niya. And then number 3, banks from whom Gleneuron acquired a portfolio of loan issued to independent drivers of Weston Bakery products in the United States. And the drivers to whom Gleneuron issued new loans. No? So yun yung 3 na mga katransaction ni Gleneuron. The only non-arm's length dealing that Gleneuron had with respect to these core activities, yung 3 core activities ni Gleneuron, it is suggested are dealings with the Weston Bakery Group relating to the loans to drivers. Reference was made to the tax court reasons at paragraph 5660 and 243. So admitted niya na non-arm's length yung extension of loan niya doon sa mga drivers ng Weston Bakery, which is mga related parties, no? So ito yung analysis ng court. The question to be determined is whether the tax court erred in concluding that Gleneuron did not conduct business principally with arm's-length persons for purposes of the definition of investment business in subsection 95.1 of the ITA for the reasons that follow. No? So the writer here, Judith Woods, conclude that the tax court did make reviewable errors. No? So sabi ni Judith Woods, may error naman daw talaga ang court. Which are errors of law, no? Errors of law. And that the tax court's decision should be set aside. No? So set aside ang decision ng tax court. Accordingly, it is also necessary to consider the appropriate remedy. The analysis below is organized into the following parts. what is the applicable standard of review? No? Kasi appeal na to eh. May mga assigned error. So what is the applicable standard of review? What is the proper interpretation of the legislation? Kasi nagkaroon nga daw ng error of law ang tax court, no? Did the court err? Nagkamali ba talaga yung tax court? What is the appropriate remedy? Kung nagkamali, ano yung remedy? Did Glenn conduct business principally with arm's length persons? What is an appropriate award of cost? No? Laki ng cost dito. Okay. So, what is the applicable standard of review? Alam niyo, ang ganda ng pagkasulat dito ni Judith Woods ng decision niya dito. No? It is explained. Kaya parang hindi ka maiinip. No? Kasi ang ganda ng pagka-explain niya. Unlike doon sa iba na pag gumawa sila ng decision, hindi ko maintindihan. Ito talaga may mga summary at saka parang inisa-isa bawat issue. No? So, ito yung gusto kong how the case is being written, no? Decision. In an appeal from the tax court, this court is to apply the standards of review set out in Hausen versus Nicolaisen, 2002. Questions of law are to be reviewed on a standard of correctness, no? So anong standard of review daw ng law? Question of law are to be reviewed on a standard of correctness. Correct, siyempre. Ano ba ang standard? Siyempre, yung tama. Questions of fact and questions of mixed facts and law, other than extricable questions of law, are to be reviewed on a standard of palpable and overriding error. No? So, ano ba yung error na nagawa dun sa law na yan? Okay? So, what is the proper interpretation of the legislation? The well-established approach to interpreting statutes in Canada, including the Income Tax Act, is to consider the text, context, and purpose of the legislation in a manner that is harmonious with the statute as a whole. No? The term investment business requires that to be eligible for the exclusions described in paragraph A, B, and C, the business must be other than any business conducted principally with persons with whom the affiliate does not deal at arm's length. No? So, the particular question to be determined in the appeal is, who did Glenn principally conduct business with? The key phrase here is business conducted with. No? So, ang ganda, napaka-clear po ng analysis ni Judith Woods. The plain meaning of the phrase business conducted, which suggests that it applies to every person with whom Glenn has a business relationship. It is not limited to persons with whom Glenn had entered into income-earning transactions. On the other hand, the plain meaning does not extend to persons with whom Glenn interacted if the interaction was not in the nature of Glenn doing business. This is implied by the word with. After determining with whom Glenn conducted business, the business relationship must be weighed to determine with whom the corporation principally conducted business. The use of the general term principally suggests that the weighing will be a fact-based determination that is appropriate in the particular circumstances. As for context, at the high level, the FAPI, ano yung FAPI? Foreign Account Property Income scheme differentiate between passive income and active business income. No? So, kahit sa ang issue pa, pagdating na po sa income, very important na i-determine po ang passive income or active income. As described in detail by the tax court, legislative changes were made to the scheme in 1995 in response to concerns that the existing legislation did not have sufficient teeth to properly capture passive income. One way in which this objective was addressed was to add a definition of investment business. No? So the definition of investment business differentiates between active business income and passive income in a very rough way. It does this by encompassing a wide range of businesses and providing for a limited number of specific exclusions. Turning in the purpose of the provision at issue, the arm's length test is one of several requirements to qualify for one of the exclusions. The exclusions generally further the fundamental purpose of the FAPI schemes, which is to apply only to passive income. The requirements for the exclusion for foreign banks address this objective in several ways, including the arm's length requirement. The business has to be subject to foreign banking laws and be regulated. The corporation has to operate the business. The business must have the equivalent of more than 5 full-time employees, and the business must not be conducted principally with non-arm's length persons. So, yun daw yung arm's length requirements. It is convenient to mention here that the above condition demonstrate that the foreign bank exclusion generally depends on whether the corporation is licensed and regulated. Kasi Isiglinyo ron is licensed and regulated in Barbados, no? Licensed siya ng Central Bank of Barbados. And not directly on whether it carries on particular type of activities. Did the tax court here, kamali ba yung tax court? The tax court was faced with daunting task of having to grapple with a myriad of issues in a lengthy trial. Only one of these issues has been appealed to this court, no? So isang issue lang ang inappeal. In my respectful view, sabi ni Judith Woods, the tax court conclusions on the arm's length issue is built on an interpretation of the applicable legislation which significantly overtakes and contains errors of law. No? Such legal errors are to be reviewed on the non-differential standard of correctness, as will be evident below. In large measure, I agree with the submission of Loblaw Financial on this issue, but my analysis differs somewhat. One error concerns how the arm's length test is to be interpreted in the specific context of foreign banks. The tax court determined that a proper interpretation of the arm's length test in a banking context requires one to examine the bank's activities from the perspective of both the receipt and use of funds. This was based on the court's view that a bank's business necessarily involves two sides, receipts and use. No? Receipts, tinanggap niya yung funds. And then use, paano niya pinahiram yung funds niya to earn interest or to earn income. The court appeared to rely entirely for this conclusion on the definition of an international banking business, no? In the Barbados legislation. This conclusion was a legal error, no? So sabi ng court. Simply because Barbados legislation defines international banking in a particular manner does not mean that receipt and use are always unnecessary requirements to carry on a banking business in Barbados or elsewhere. Canadian courts find it difficult to define the term banking. The Supreme Court discussed this difficulty in the context of a constitutional matter in Canadian Pioneer Management Limited versus Labor Relations Board of Saskatchewan, 1979, 1980s, CRA 433107 DLR 3D1. In that case, the decision of the majority concluded that banking is an elusive concept, no? Ito yung hindi ko alam kasi bakit pag gumawa ng law, lalagay mo dito elusive concept. Ibig sabihin, nilagay mo dyan sa batas mo, hindi mo naiintindihan, no? So, difficult to define. And its meaning should be based in a formal. Kasi kung yung nag-draft mismo ng law, hindi niya maintindihan yung ginawa niya, paano pa yung mag-administer noon, no? Difficult to define, and its meaning should be based on a formal institutional approach. Para sa akin yan ang pinaka-importante na the most important part of crafting a law. Sa mga mambabatas, trabaho talaga nila yan. Before nagawin yung isang batas, dapat talaga na yung concept is well-defined. No? Kasi ang daming loophole ng batas pagka hindi well-defined yung mga konsepto na nandyan. Institutional approach rather than a substantive approach in the sense of the functions of banking. It follows that the use of the term bank in the names of the entity and whether it is regulated are factors to be considered rather than the actual activities that are conducted. The tax court approach is is at odds with Canadian Pioneer, which details that a formal institutional approach should be taken to define a banking business. Using this approach, there is no reasonable basis to conclude that the arm's length test requires both business receipts and uses. The tax court's error that business receipts and uses are necessary to comply with the arm's length test spawned to incorrect conclusion. No? So ito na yung sinasabi ng court. That the receipt side of the business implies an element of competition. So paragraph 210, and 2, that the necessity for business receipt means that the exclusion does not apply if a business simply manages its own funds. Since the term banking depends on formal factors rather than functions, it is a legal error for the tax court to make these inferences. So legal error daw ng tax court. In addition, the tax court focused on competition, which was dealt with at length in the court's reasons. Is an example of a court inferring a purposive interpretation from an expressed legislative intent. This is also a legal error. So, inisa-isa ni Judith Woods yung error ng tax court. As stated by the Supreme Court of Canada, this court has consistently held that courts must therefore be cautious before finding within the clear provisions of the Income Tax Act an unexpressed legislative intention. Hindi naman yun yung intention talaga ng legislator, no? Finding an expressed legislative intention under the guise of purposive interpretation runs the risk of upsetting the balance. Parliament has attempted to strike it in the Income Tax Act. No? In the case of Shell Canada Limited versus Canada 1999, 3 is CR 622 at para 43178 DLR 426. The emphasis in the tax court reasons on an unexpressed intention of competition is not appropriate in this case, which involves a FAPI, foreign account property income scheme that is drafted with mind-numbing detail. The tax court, another error, also erred by conflating the rationale of the legislation for purposes of AGAR, General Anti-Avoidance Rule, analysis with the purpose of the legislation and a statutory interpretation analysis. These are distinctly different exercises. Canada versus Oxford Properties Group, Inc., 2018 FCA 30 at paragraphs 40-42. Okay. It appears that the tax court brushed over this distinction, referring to it as something of a fine legalistic point. As discussed in the tax court reasons, competition is recognized as a policy rationale for limiting FAPI to passive income, and as such, it would be relevant in AGAR analysis. However, Parliament has not explicitly required competition as an element of the foreign bank exclusion at issue. This may be contrasted with other FAPI provisions where a competition requirement is explicit. See, for example, subsection 95(2)(4) of the ITA. The court also erred in not respecting the fundamental principle that a corporation and its shareholders are separate and distinct entities. See Chevron Corporation versus Yao Guahi, 2015 ACC 42 at paragraph 95. This error is manifested in the court determination that Glen Euron's activities involving the purchase of short-term debt securities and its swap transactions were conducted with Loblaw. So ito yung error ng tax court. In its case, the court stated that Glen Euron was acting on behalf of Loblaw, whose money it was investing, except with respect to investment management services, which are not relevant and part of the analysis. Glen Euron was not managing Loblaw's money, but its own. So ito na yung sinabi ng government, ng court. It was an error of law for the court to consider that Glen Euron's money belonged to Loblaw. Kasi separate and distinct sila eh. So, ang contention naman kasi ng isa na si Glenn Neurons is Loblaw din, no? So, what is the appropriate remedy? The error made in the court below were the foundation for its conclusion that Glenn Neurons' income was FAPI, foreign account property income ni Loblaw. Kasi ang may-ari daw ng pera na ginagamit ni Glenn Neuron is si Loblaw. Kaya tinatax nila yung income ni Glenn Neuron na income ni Loblaw sa Canada. Accordingly, the tax court's decision should be set aside. No? Kaya sinit aside siya ng court. Except for its finding with respect to investment management services which was not appealed. No? Itong investment management services, ito yung services na ginagawa ni Glenn Neuron. Ito yung active income. In light of these errors, this court may either refer the matter back to the tax court for redetermination or it may make the decision that the tax court should have given. In this particular case, the record was extensive and included a 36-volume appeal book. Imagine, no? 36 volume. I was initially doubted that it would be feasible to make the necessary findings of fact in this appeal to give the judgment that the tax court should have given. Ultimately, I have concluded that it is possible to make the necessary findings of fact. This conclusion is assisted by 3 factors. 1, the reasons of the tax court are very detailed. Kaya nga, nagustuhan ko to, hindi ako naiinip dito sa case na to eh. Why? Because very detailed. Madali siya intindihin. No? Hindi magulo yung decision. Number 2, Loblaw Financial provided summaries and information from financial statements that could be verified from the record. No? Yung mga annexes dito is coming from the financial statement of Glenn Neuron. No? The Crown does not take issue with the tax court's factual findings as to the activities conducted by Glenn Neuron. Kasi yung factual issues, yun yung tatlong activities ni Glenn Neuron, no? Yung nag-swap siya, nag-invest siya ng bumibili siya ng accounts receivable, nagpa-factoring, no? Bumibili ng short-term investment, no? Okay. I turn now to consider what decision the tax court should have given, sabi ni Judith Woods. Did Glenn Neuron conduct business principally with arm's-length persons? In this section, I considered who Glenn Neuron conducted business with. For the reasons that follow, I conclude that Glenn Neuron principally conducted business with arm's-length persons. This conclusion does not depend on whether or not the investment management business is considered a separate business. Ano sabi ni Judith Woods? Arm's-length person daw yung mga katransaction ni Glenn Neuron. So in short, pumanig yung court sa Glenn Neuron. The term investment business explicitly requires that either Loblaw Financial or Glenn Neuron establish that the arm's length requirement has been satisfied. In my view, Loblaw Financial has done so for the reasons below. I conclude that Glenn Neuron principally conducted business with persons with whom it entered into contracts with respect to short-term debt, securities, and swap transactions. Glenn Neuron dealt with all such persons on an arm's length basis. The essence of Glenn Neuron business activity was to decide what areas of business to pursue and what specific income-earning contracts to enter into and then to implement those transactions. These activities generally involve interactions between Glenn Neuron, the persons with whom Glenn Neuron entered into income-earning transactions. Anong sabi nung una pa lang sa case that Glenn Neuron contracted business with non-arm's length persons, no? Pero pagdating na dito, hindi naman si Judith Woods sa factual findings, pero sinabi niya na Glenn Neuron conducted business with arm's length persons. Yun ang findings niya. In applying the arm's length test to this interaction, one must consider how the interaction with Loblaw Financial affects the analysis, determine the predominant income earning transactions, and determine whether those transactions were conducted with persons with whom Glenn Yoron dealt at arm's length. So yan naman ang sabi ni Judith Woods. With respect to the interaction between Glenn Yoron and Loblaw Financial, the extent and nature of this interaction was not as clearly set out in the evidence as it could have been. Loblaw Financial submits that this interaction were commercially normal and legally required. This suggests a mere oversight role which would not amount to conducting business with Glenn Yoron. In my view, the evidence was not sufficiently detailed. So, inamin naman niya na the evidence is not sufficiently detailed to establish that the role was limited in this way. The role may well have involved Loblaw Financial providing support services to Glenn Yoron, which resulted in Glenn Yoron conducting business with its parent corporation. Yun naman talaga ang business nila, di ba, with the group, no, ng Weston at saka ng Loblaw. However, in my view, this does not affect the ultimate issue, which is whether Glenn Yoron principally conducted business with arm's length persons. No? So, we'll detail yung kanyang explanation. The FAPI regime as a whole, and the foreign bank exclusion in particular, is intended to encourage Canadians to carry on active business outside Canada. Parliament could not have intended that the foreign bank exclusion should be denied as a result of support and oversight provided by a parent corporation. The legislative intent would be frustrated if this interaction with Loblaw Financial were to be given significant weight. No? Kasi magiging parang hindi na nai-encourage yung mag-transact na ang business ang Canadian outside. No? As far-weighing Glenn Yoron's interaction in its income-earning transactions, a predominant weighing should be given to persons with whom Glenn Yoron dealt in the context of acquiring short-term debt, securities, and swaps. Ito yung core activities niya, no? Yung buying short-term debt securities and then swaps, no? And then yung factoring ng accounts receivable. As clearly set out in the appended charts, the vast majority of Glenn Yoron's assets were invested in US-denominated short-term securities, cross-currency swaps, and interest rate swaps. These activities also generated by far the most income. Except for Loblaw's supporting role discussed above, this business activity was conducted entirely with arm's-length persons. So, based doon sa pinakita nila na index dito sa decision. Loblaw Financial submitted that there was another aspect of Glenn Yoron's core business, loans to drivers of Weston Bakery products. Ito yung sinasabi nila na hindi arm's length, yung mga drivers ng Weston Bakery products. Although the loans were held by arm's length drivers, the arrangement had a significant involvement of the Weston Bakery Group and was subject to a formal agreement with that group. I conclude that this part of the business was substantially conducted with Weston as well as with the arm's length drivers. Also, di pa rin siya naniniwala na hindi arm's length yun. Arm's length pa rin yung mga drivers of the Weston Bakery products, which is a related party of Glenn Yoron and Loblaw. Kasi sila lang naman na magkagrupo. No? However, it is not necessary to take the driver's loans into account to satisfy the arm's length test. As described in the charts, the driver's loans employed a relatively small amount of Glenn Yoron's funds, and they earned a relatively small amount of income. My general impression is that the activity involved more employee time than other businesses relative to its returns, but that the number of employees engaged in the activity was still small compared to the main business activity, which involved active participation of an investment team to purchase short-term debt securities and enter into swap transaction. Okay? So, anong naging decision dito ng court? Kasi ang this is an appeal, no? Ang sabi ng court, ito na. I would allow the appeal. So, panalo dito yung appeal. Si Loblaw Financial. I would allow the appeal and set aside the decision of the tax court. In giving the decision that the tax court should have given, I would allow the appeal in the tax court and refer the reassessment back to the minister for reconsideration and reassessment of the basics. That Glen Euron's FAPI consists only of income from investment management. So ano yung income na isa-subject lang niya sa foreign account property income. So isama siya doon sa income ni Loblaw. Yun lang investment management services. Yun yung active income ni Glen Euron. Pero yung passive income, hindi niya pinapasama. No? Provided to non-arm's length parties. At yun lang investment management services na provided to non-arm's length parties. No? Anong decision niya dito? I would order cost to Loblaw Financial with respect to this appeal. No? So, binigyan niya ng cost. So, panalo talaga si Loblaw. With respect to cost in the tax court, I would set aside the award of cost by the tax court. Walang award ng cost ang tax court. In making the decision that the tax court should have given, I would award cost to Loblaw Financial in a fixed amount of $1.8 million. So, yan yung plus reasonable disbursement. Yan yung decision ng court. But remember that this case is still an appeal, no? Federal Court of Appeal pa lang to. So, pwede pa itong i-elevate sa Supreme Court. No? Okay. So, we have discussed to you the investment business as defined, no? Doon sa Barbados. Actually, ang involved doon is the law of Barbados. But sabi nga doon, hindi pa masyado na-define yung ano bang ibig sabihin ng banking, no? Tsaka itong investment business. And then the foreign accrual property income, no? Kasi ito yung income of the properties or investment ng Canadian citizen in other country that is taxable in Canada. And we have discussed to you the case of Loblaw Financial Holdings Inc. versus Her Majesty the Queen, which is an appeal case, no? The appellant is the Loblaw Financial Holdings Inc. and the respondent is Her Majesty the Queen. And the decision is in favor of Loblaw Financial Holdings Inc., no? And the cost is 1.8 million in favor of Loblaw and against the Her Majesty the Queen, no? So, may shout out.
Wala po, ma'am. Sabi lang po ni Ma'am Jules Springs. Napaka-generous po niyo, ma'am. Thank you po very much.
Thank you po. No? Magkaroon pa tayo po ng mga series of webinars. Yung mga updates natin sa international taxation and also in the taxation of the digitized economy and also the yung international taxation, the updates in transfer pricing. Magkaroon po tayo niyan. So, hopefully, gagawin na po natin yan in a monthly basis. So, with that, I would like to say thank you and let's call it a night.